And what did the zombies find in them? They were tasteless, inconsist like vegetables. It tasted like rubber, but what if?
To take a part of the brain and discard it to distract the zombies, like a lizard that sheds its tail. Would they start doing that?
And all know that one can live with one kidney. All know that one can live with one lung. But few knows that one can live even with half a brain.
This is Christina Sandhaus. She lived her whole life with only half a brain. The right hemisphere is simply absent, but she has a husband, a family, and even a master's degree. She can drive a car, play bowling, and now she works as a speech therapist and raises 2 daughters with normal brains.
You know, she's lucky because her legs can misfire to cause the functions the right one. Of course, to say that it all went without consequences would be untrue. Living with half an empathy school is not easy.
Christina's left side is paralyzed. To walk, they put a bracket on her left leg, and her left hand is always pressed.
For scientists, she was a discovery because she showed how the brain can reorganize itself. And there are many such patients. You can try them all. Each has their own baggage and peculiarities. So to understand how the brain works, we need to break it.
Now you will find out where fear comes from and whether it can be turned off. How the brain constructs maps right in your head. Why did Hodor keep repeating Hodor? What is it like to live halfway in the world? How do boxers turn their brains into ruins? What happens if you cut your brain in half? We tried to find many interesting facts.
And what do you think? How big is the biggest fear? I will tell you. It's the size of an almond, and it's located right here.
This area is called the amygdala. And yes, you understand correctly. When the amygdala is activated, it's time to put on your pants. A chain reaction track is launched from the brain to the adrenal glands, which are glands sitting on our kidneys like a hat.
The adrenaline glands release 2 hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. These are the hormones that are injected into the blood.
In a fight, it's like releasing the handbrake to hit the gas as soon as possible. Your heart speeds up to pump more blood. Breathing accelerates to pump as much oxygen into the blood. Blood from the intestines rushes to the brain, so hunger goes away and attention comes in. The pupils dilate to let in as much light as possible and see any threat. Any movement like a cat, fuel goes to the muscles, and they are ready to run or defend.
Fight or flight, a familiar feeling to everyone, but not to patient SM046.
The patient's identity is classified, so in the media she is referred to as the woman without fear. She has no amygdalas on both sides, unlike a normal brain which has 2 black holes in their place.
Since there are no nuts, there are no fears. This woman is practically impossible to scare.
They let her hold huge snakes and spiders, showed horrors, and even took her to a creepy abandoned sanatorium in Beverly Hills where they tried to scare her with dozens of actors. But nothing worked.
A superpower, you might say, but every superpower has a downside. When attacked with a knife in an alley, she stood with a stone face. Although, once she was finally scared with carbon dioxide gas, they made her inhale from a canister.
The thing is, when the concentration of CO2 in the blood rises, the body thinks we are suffocating. This scares the older parts of the brain, like the brainstem we inherited from reptiles. In any case, she had no other fears, and she definitely conquered the fear factors.
But the important thing in this story is that the brain is a very interesting part of the body. You can get study the brain in a living person. You can cut it open and see how it all works. Scientists understand how the brain works only when it breaks, just like how we broke toys in childhood to see how they were built.
One part of the patient's brain, SM046, namely the amygdalas, broke, and now we know the role they play in our behavior.
In this episode, we will be breaking the brain, literally, but let's go back to fears. For ancient humans, living in their cave was scary, and it was not just about tigers. You could go out and not come back, sites after hunting mammals. And you don't know if it's your cave.
They all looked the same. Whether it was your woman or not was unclear. What to do here? Drawing maps and women, apparently the first map weighing several kilograms, nothing is clear. Yes. The ocean that the Babylonians called Bitter Water. Here is a mountain, and here is Babylon itself. Next to it is Assyria and Armenia. Armenia is a very ancient country.
Later we moved onto huge pages, and now you can simply grab your phone and everything is already at your fingertip. But even without it, as you may have noticed, you can miraculously get humdrum. It's the singular autopilot.
Now the Bushmen during hunting go 40 kilometers away from their native village into the desert and return home with prey without any map.
The only map they have is in their hands, and you can do the same. That's how your brain performs tricks.
There are special neurons, grid neurons. They are like a ship's radar, scanning everything around and building grids, not from squares but from hexagons. This is how you remember everything around you. Rats run in certain points in the room, and their grid neurons light up. Roughly speaking, this is an enlarged part of their brain. Connecting the dots, we get hexagons. Why hexagons? It's the perfect shape in nature, evenly filling the maximum area. Beehives are hexagons, soap bubbles are hexagons, and facets in the eyes of insects, as well as mental maps in your head.
There are also direction neurons. They work like compass. You don't feel where north and south are, you just understand where you're relative to. For example, your home. Speed neurons work like a speedometer and count how many grid cells you pass per second. That's all these networks of neurons. You can go to the bathroom at night with the light off, with your eyes closed. And now I will repeat it once again. All these maps are physically woven in your head.
It's visible through neuron activity. In a rat, each place in the maze has its own group of neurons marked on the brain map with specific colors. Look at how her brain draws the map live. In humans, these maps are in the hippocampus, which means seahorse in Greek, because it really looks like a seahorse. We also have two of them, left and right, and if they break, you become a tourist in your own city, and even more so in your own home. You can get lost. Like Sharon Roseman with memory, everything is fine with her. She just can't build maps in her head. Every morning, she has to relearn how to walk to the kitchen as if all the walls have moved overnight. She only works where she can go straight home. Living in Denver, she always knows that the mountains will be to the west. That's how she orients herself.
And you complain about your topographical cluelessness? No, calm down, but this is just one end of the spectrum. There's another. People with the powerful, puppet hippocampus. And it's not geography teachers. It's London taxi drivers. Why London taxi drivers? Well, look at the map.
Barcelona has almost a perfect grid of square courtyards, while London is a continuous labyrinth of streets without any plan. A London taxi driver must store in their head 25,000 streets, plus thousands of pubs, churches, museums, restaurants, nightclubs, and tourist attractions. They memorize all of this for 2 years, and then take an exam where they mark points from memory to create routes.
Okay, until you become a London taxi driver, and your hippocampus is definitely not the trainer, because you can still get lost in IKEA. But your brain is definitely the same as everyone else's, with convolutions and two hemispheres that work quite strangely. The left hemisphere controls only the right side of the body, and the right hemisphere controls the left, but why?
Well, simply, that's how nature says it. The universe is nothing like the plan. How does this system affect us? Let's remember the girl again, and first release. She didn't have the right hemisphere, and the left side of her body was paralyzed.
Her brain adapted, and the left hemisphere took on some of the functions of the right. Now Christina lives a normal life. It turns out the hemispheres cross-control body movements. It's not that simple. Do you remember Hodor from Game of Thrones?
He kept repeating his name all the time.
Hodor, 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 Hodor,
Hodor, calm down.
Hodor, Hodor.
But what if I tell you that scientists have an idea of how his brain might have looked?
Most likely like this, as if a shell hit him.
Of course, that's not Hodor's brain, but that's of Richmond Louis Reborn, who lost speech at the age of 30 and could only say one word. Done. It's questions, affirmations, answers. I love you, it. How much does it cost? And curses, it's everything. Look at how it looks in a modern patient.
Listen, he understands everything, but he can only say one word, oh no. And yes, this is not Mr. Tantan, this is Mr. Tonton.
Tunnel, tunnel. Tunnel,
Can you count that out for me?
tunnel, 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 tunnel. A tunnel, 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 tunnel. A tunnel, tunnel. A tunnel, 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 tunnel.
Reborn was lucky. He ended up with famous surgeon Paul Broca. Now, he couldn't cure him, but he could study his brain, as well as other patients with similar problems. So now we know what it's about.
All of them had a breakdown in the same place, on the left side in the frontal lobe, like Reborn. In the end, this area was named the Broca's area.
In this way, brain bugs have shown that the left hemisphere is responsible not only for the movement of the right side of the body, but also for speech. As for the right hemisphere, during its merge with the left, it was considered almost useless. However, as they found out for sure, you all understood correctly. They simply observed, more precisely looked at those whose right hemisphere was already broken, at people who survived a stroke on the right side of the head. They live in the halfway fold. How is that? I will show you now.
These people eat only from the right side of the plate, ignoring the left, and complain about small portions. Women apply makeup, and men shave only on the right side, avoiding the left side of the face altogether, as if it doesn't exist.
And most importantly, they will think everything is normal, also for them. The left side of the world simply doesn't exist.
They draw only the right half of the clock face, the right half of the flower, a cat, and even half of the house.
For them everything is fine. These are complete houses, complete cats, clocks, any dogs.
The second half of the world is given back to them with such glasses. They redirect a complete picture to their left eye. Look again at how it works.
And the world becomes normal. Also, we know that the right half is responsible for recognizing faces, shapes, irony, sarcasm, and humor. So a person who has had a stroke on the right side of the head would not understand your favorite jokes, even the funniest ones in the world.
Let's reinforce this. The left hemisphere is for speech, and the right is for meaning. But how do they communicate? Approximately like computers in a local network. Our two hemispheres are connected by the corpus callosum, a bundle of nerve fibers. Thanks to it, the hemispheres work together, like two guitarists playing together, adjusting to each other to make the sound richer. The corpus callosum in the middle works. Guitarists play synchronously, and speech connects with thought.
We say that music pulls our heartstring and warms our hearts, but in fact it caresses our corpus callosum.
See how your entire brain shines like a Christmas tree in an MRI machine when you listen to music. Music enhances connections between hemispheres. Two brains exchange information, work faster. In other words, under the influence of music, the brain works better.
If you carefully follow the episode, you must come to a shocking conclusion. Yes, we actually have two brains. What if we separate these two halves? What will happen then? And who would agree to such an experiment? Well, the answer: the people with epilepsy.
Electrical impulses like lightning bolts jump around their brains. Sometimes something gets stuck and a real storm begins. That's epilepsy. We cut the brain in half, and the discharges remain only on one side, and the seizures decrease.
A person with a split brain can walk right next to you, and you won't even notice it until some strangeness begins. For example, the right hand starts behaving strangely like someone else's.
The right hand chooses one t-shirt and the left another. The right one takes one bar and the left another. In the series House, a guy couldn't control his hand, threw objects, and even hit the girl he loved. In Doctor Strangelove, the hand either started strangling a Nazi or threw a Heil.
This is called the alien hand syndrome. Now let's recall that the left hemisphere can speak, but the right cannot. Our hemispheres communicate with each other, but in people with a split brain, they don't.
If you place different objects to the left of a person and ask, "What do you see?" the person will say that they see nothing, because the left-speaking brain truly does not notice anything with the right eye. At the same time, if you show the left eye the question, "Take a Rubik's Cube," the understanding right brain can easily do it with the left hand. However, if you pass it to the right hand and ask the person why they are holding the Rubik's Cube, they won't remember taking it on assignment and will come up with an unlikely answer like, "I felt like it."
And it's mind-blowingly strange.
We can even ask them questions, for example, "What is your favorite color?" They will respond differently.
Due to the split brains, the left-speaking hemisphere could not understand what the right saw, and the right saw everything but could not say anything. Does this mean that patients with a split brain have two independent brains, two completely different intellects in one head? Partly, yes. And the most important thing is that you also have two separate brains in your head. They just communicate with each other, and you don't notice it. But the most interesting thing is, what is your personality? Is it the left hemisphere that speaks, or the right that understands? Or these two personalities in one head? In reality, neurons from both hemispheres come together in a common brain, like ants gathering an anthill. This anthill of neurons is you.
Here it is, the pinnacle of evolution, 1.5 kilograms of thinking jelly. And this is us. All our childhood memories and dreams of the future are here.
When you realize this, you immediately want to treat your neural network carefully. You want to tear up subscription to a boxing class.
Look at how boxers knock each other's brains out. Yes, it's probably painful, but the audience doesn't care much. Watch how she applauds enthusiastically and shouts, "Hit him again," while the boxer's brain turns into ruins.
Our brain is as soft as butter, but is housed in a hard skull with sharp edges.
A knockout is when the brain hits the bone hard. A direct hit tears nerve fibers, and the brainstem, responsible for vital functions like breathing or heartbeat, hits the edges of the skull. After such a blow, a person can't stand up. They can only lie down and drool. The hypothalamus and pituitary gland break, and that's why many boxers have hormonal problems.
There can be hundreds of such knockouts in a boxer's career. It's not like 10 or 11, it's 57, 85, maybe more than a couple of hundreds.
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Remember these words? They belong to Muhammad Ali. Here he is, young and bold. And here's how he looked in old age. His face turned into a mask. His hands tremble due to Parkinson's disease, and he can barely string a couple of words together.
Every knockout is a very strong hit for the brain. Where there are dozens or hundreds of such knockouts, it leads to punch-drunk syndrome.
These people are constantly knocked out with a blow to the head, and it seems like it doesn't matter. They wake up and go about their business.
You know, in real life, the line between damaging the brain and losing consciousness is very thin. Understanding these 1.5 kilograms of jelly, all your memories, all your fears, doubts, passwords, keys, feeling, everything is here.
This is you. That's why it's so important to wear a helmet when you ride a bike or work on a construction site or at the Large Hadron Collider. So take care of your non-damaged brains and upgrade him.